vaccines for our pets. And we're going to talk about some different approaches, the newest and latest and greatest vaccine schedule, what to do if you think your dog has had a reaction, some tips on what to do to detox before and after, and really important announcement. It's really exciting as well about titering our dogs. We'll talk about that. And I have a special guest, Dr. Zach, who is a nationally recognized veterinarian, so that he can kind of give us his guidelines as well. Welcome, Dr. Zach.
Thank you again for having me. So excited.
I'm so excited too. So let's just jump into it because we have a lot of really good information today. And what I want to start with is when we're thinking about vaccinating our dogs, let's start with if we're just getting started and talk about what is your recommended if you were to have a dog, a new dog that you just adopted or rescued. What would be the vaccine schedule or protocol that you would follow for that dog?
Yeah. So it's completely, my protocol is based in the normal biology of puppies and kittens. So Rob Schultz is a guy, a veterinarian that has been studying literally since like the 80s and 90s. So 20, 30, 40 plus years. And he's kind of like the guru. He's the one that helped actually edit the World Small Animal Veterinary Association's vaccination guidelines as well, finally, after the decades of work. So my protocol is essentially based off of his research that he's done for 4 decades. And so the first thing that is super important to know is that the maternal antibodies in our puppies and kittens are circulating till about 8-9 weeks of age at a strength that is enough to protect the animal and also to neutralize any type of immune stimulation that we give at the same time. So giving vaccinations before 8 weeks, maybe even before 9 weeks, honestly, according to his research, is actually pointless. Not only that, but also is completely wasteful of an immune stimulation. So about 9-10 weeks is usually when I start, preferably 10 weeks. And where we start with is, our core vaccinations really only. So the ones that we know are promoting significant immune protection and also are the ones that we consider, I would consider mandatory towards protecting an animal for its life. So the combo of those that exists would be distemper, adenovirus, and parvovirus. They put in another one in there, parainfluenza virus, which is in the combo vaccine, which is what most people are giving. I know you can separate them, but it's really hard to find that vaccine, honestly. The distemper and the adenovirus are the most important. I mean, distemper and the parvovirus are the most important. The adenovirus is also important. And then the parainfluenza, I guess they throw in there. That was when they added. So, but usually 9, preferably 10 weeks of age is when I would start. And I would give the first vaccination then. For that, I would wait about 4 weeks. And then I would give the booster for that one. So that one's usually about 9, 10, 13, 14 weeks of age, preferably 14 weeks. And then, somewhere around 4 to 6 weeks after that is when I would recommend giving the rabies. So, which is obviously mandated by law. So, that would be how I start an animal out. So they're getting 3 total shots, not the, 6 to 12, I guess that has been commonplace, which is a little scary. In addition to all the dewormings and all the other stuff we have started to do and feel like it's mandatory, which it's not. And then around 1 year of age is when we would consider either boosting those puppy kitten vaccines or starting titer testing at that time. So my preference is to boost the rabies one more time at around 1 year of age, between 1 and 1.5. And then but start titer testing for distemper and parvovirus, because according to Rob Schultz research, the puppy vaccinations can protect them for life in a lot of situations. But that's why we do titer testing, to prove when circulating antibody is getting close to that questionable mark or has lost efficacy. So, but and then after 1 year of age, titer every other year. So that's how I would do it.
Okay. And we'll talk about what titering is. And I know you have a really exciting option around that. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. But just to kind of summarize what you're saying is when you get a new animal, a new dog, for your dog, what you would do is are the core vaccines, which would be, I think, DAP or DPP, distemper, adenovirus, parvovirus, and then basically with those, you would do those at around 9 to 10 weeks, ideally closer to the 10-week mark. And then just to keep it simple, about 4 weeks after that, do their boosters.
Mhm.
From there, you would recommend to titer. And a quick summary on titer is basically just testing the antibodies to see if they're having more of an immunity towards that. Basically showing that they're protected for it.
Right.
That way we're testing for immunity and we're not just over vaccinating, but we'll talk more
Right.
about that in a moment. And then for rabies, you recommend to do it about 4 weeks after that. Is that correct?
Yeah, it makes it easier to remember. So you just can, you can call your vet and be like, "Yep, I'm setting up my 3, vaccine appointments, so 444." But I think we had talked a little bit about how a lot of the integrated vets will wait, say to wait around 6 months. So honestly, for me, I'm not too worried about that. I would somewhere between 4.5 to 6 months. Rabies is the most deadly disease we work with, so I'd rather them get protected from that earlier rather than wait a little later. But and you never have a rabies exposure until you have a rabies exposure. So it's a thing that you can't predict happens, but you want to be protected if it happens. So that's why usually I feel like the 4 weeks apart for me I think is very safe. But at the same time, if you wanted to wait up to 6 months, I think that wouldn't be like the worst decision. It would be, and it would be in line with a lot of other vets as well. So
Yeah, absolutely. Every holistic or integrative vet aligns with that protocol as well. So I think that's and it's really effective and have been for number of years. I think when I think about, and I also want to give a disclaimer, I do in all these videos that sharing this content is for informational purposes for those watching to share with your veterinarian. We're not looking to provide medical advice or try to treat, prescribe, diagnose,
mm,
cure, or anything. This is just meant to be sharing what Dr. Zach and I would do with our own pets, and then for you as the viewer and as the advocate of your pet to take and share with your veterinarian, because this information is really important. I mean, Dr. Zach, can you tell us why it can be harmful to over vaccinate and just to give our dogs a renewal every single year, even if they are have positive titers for those vaccines?
yeah, so it's kind of in line with also all this talk we have about the health of the gut, and the immune system that exists there. That's the reason for why we advocate for, if it's possible, both economically as well as temporally, and in that sector for every pet parent, that whole food wellness helps to nourish the gut and help to support the immune system that exists there. And so over vaccinating, what it does is it's hyper stimulating the immune system to a degree that is confusing it, and then causing what we believe is now these downstream diseases and syndromes. A lot of them are even syndromes, I'd consider, because syndrome is something you don't really know even yet what the cause is. So a disease has a definitive cause and effect, and the syndrome is in the realm of idiopathic, which we use a lot. Idiopathic just means we don't know the exact cause yet, I guess, per se, in a correlative fashion. But I think that it's becoming a little more apparent, well, especially in the holistic integrative space, but even in the conventional space, that we are seeing a really high uptick in immune mediated diseases, whether that's red blood cell related or platelet related or neurologic related, thyroid related, adrenal related, all these organs that we're seeing kind of these really substantial uptick in immune mediated diseases that whether it's related to one or several factors in the change of veterinary medicine over the last 40, 50 years. But I think that the vaccines and the overstimulation, whether it's through the gut or whether it's through vaccinations alone, has a high chance of being correlative.
Yeah. And also to be clear, for those watching on replay that might not follow along and might not be aware, we're absolutely, as I think it's pretty clear, we're not anti-vaccines by any mean for our pets. We're more about just giving the optimal amount to where it's not going to overboard the system and potentially have this immune system response, as you talked about. And there are, potential negative side effects, and we'll talk about what to do that can be serious. And we'll talk about what to do in a moment if your dog or pet experiences those. But let's first talk about, well, here's my question for you. What if, because I was in this situation, I adopt an older dog, right? Might be, a year or two, and I don't know their background
Mhm.
on their vaccinations. What would you do in that situation?
it's a perfect time to do a titer test, because
Yeah.
you'll be able to prove exactly what's happened in their history. And, also remember that in dogs, especially in shelter situations, right? And where you're getting from, if you're adopting them from a shelter, there's tons of disease there that they could be getting natural immunity to. And even though that sounds weird, the natural immunity is a thing that we sometimes forget about. And although vaccinations is a way to guarantee that they're going to be protected from something, for example, parvovirus is rampant throughout any field that dogs have been hanging out with, because a lot of dogs carry it asymptomatically. And so a dog that, whether it was vaccinated or not, technically could become protected from being exposed to it in a natural environment. But that example that you brought up is an absolutely perfect reason to titer test a dog, because you have an adult animal that potentially could have gotten protection when it was younger, but maybe not. But we don't know. So instead of just jabbing them right away, it would be a great opportunity to prove or disprove what we have to actually do.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. And before we jump more into we keep talking about titer. We should have defined it better, but I'm going to keep everybody on the edge of their seat. And I want to talk about non-core vaccines, because we talked about the core vaccines and what we would do individually. What about non-core? And these are lepto, Lyme, Bordetella, influenza. There's even a rattlesnake one I think I've seen. So what's kind of your personal stance on non-core vaccines?
If you didn't add the last one, I would have a stance. I never actually worked in an area. Well, I
Yeah.
guess I do. I work in Florida actually a lot. There's Eastern Diamondbacks down there, so I guess I
Oh, yeah.
haven't seen
Yeah,
it
I
for what
don't
else.
I just
That
had
one,
somebody
so,
mention that. I was like, "Oh, I don't
yeah,
know."
I'm not sure. I'd have to look into. I know it exists, but anyway. But I guess also stemming from Dr. Rob Schultz's research, which is again where many of the integrated vets are looking to source their protocols from. There's a very small amount of evidence that proves that these vaccines are actually protective in a way that would be substantial or significant. So, so what I have come to is just kind of using each individual's animal's lifestyle and geographic location, to decide whether the benefits will outweigh the risks of over vaccinating. So, for example, for leptospirosis, that's transmitted by wildlife and rodents. So the two areas where wildlife and rodents would be if you're living in a rural area where your dog is out in the woods, or swampy areas where they're exploring all the time, and are potentially sniffing the urine, because it's spread through urine, of these other animals, wildlife animals, and or your animal lives in a very dense you guys live in a very dense urban city area where there's lots of rats around,
Mm,
and they may be urinating on sidewalks, etc. So
mm,
the caveat with the leptospirosis vaccine is that in order for it to be protective, his research, Dr. Schultz's research, supports that you have to actually do it twice a year, potentially even 3 times a year, but mainly twice a year, and we're giving it annually. So there's a good chance that animals that are getting lepto vaccinated, their protection is waning off the last 3 to 6 months before they get another one. So that would be something to keep in mind. Lyme, I guess, in the heavy concentration of the Northeast, I work up there, every now and then, since I travel as a vet. I still see pretty much, half to 3/4 of the dogs that have been vaccinated for Lyme still test positive on a 40X test that we do. So I'm not really sure if that one really is protective or not, honestly. But these animals' immune systems are getting bit still, and they're protecting the animal from that, whether they're vaccinated or not. So I would tend to believe that it's actually not successful, but each animal owner up to their discretion in that area. Everywhere else, I don't find it really useful. And then, the Bordetella one is the one that I never understood, honestly, unless your animal, you have to board your animal and they're mandating it. So, we would potentially do a detox protocol before that. But the Bordetella vaccine protects from one organism in kennel cough, and kennel cough is I actually don't call it kennel cough anymore. When owners are talking about it, I call it infectious respiratory disease complex, because there's 10 to a dozen organisms that cause kennel cough, and they all look exactly the same. So I really rarely treat with antibiotics anymore at all with dogs that get kennel cough, and I don't really support that vaccine because they still get kennel cough even if they've been vaccinated, and it's because there's viruses, parasites, and other bacteria that can cause it. So it's not really something that I have come to believe is useful.
Yeah. And that technically is true, not to spread fear, but for really any of the vaccinations is that it's not 100%. Even if you follow all of the protocols and get all of the vaccines, technically a dog could contract one of these diseases. Parvo is an example. I feel like I've seen people mention that their dog got it even though they vaccinated their dog.
Yeah.
Oh, I think you froze there. For those in the for
Are
oh,
we good?
I think it's a little frozen. There you go. Oh wait, you might
Frozen?
want to leave. You can leave and come back in and see if that works and fixes it, and I can edit this part later on.
I'm still frozen.
Oh wait, no, there you are. You're back.
Oh, goodness. I haven't
Okay, there
moved.
you.
I don't know what happened. I'm in the same spot.
I know it. Well, it happens. It's
Yeah.
technology. Okay, so I think this is a good time to talk about titer tests, and then I want to talk more about what we can some options and alternatives that pet parents can explore. But titer tests are really important in as you've talked about, and I'll let you kind of define what they are. But the one thing I want you, for those of you watching, to remember when we're thinking about titer testing is that the overall goal, whether you're um, vaccinating or titering for your pet, is essentially to promote immunization. And that is the best way to protect our pets. And it's important to remember that immunization does not equal vaccination.
Mhm.
So we step back and we think about, okay, if our goal is to protect our pets, to promote immunity towards these really deadly, serious diseases, how can we do that? Vaccinations can be one way. Dr. Zach talked about actually having like real life exposure sometimes can develop that as well. Healthy immunity is important as well, but titering can help determine if our dog has protection either naturally or stemming from the initial vaccines that they got already, so that instead of going to the vet every year, every other year, and getting these shots over and over and over again, we may be able to not have to do that. So, Dr. Zach, explain to us, what is a titer, and what are some options to be able to do this?
Yeah. So, I guess where the titer comes from is our immune system has two major components: our adaptive immune system, or the immune system that can remember things. We have two different cell types in our body, and one that remembers and fights off agents through producing antibodies, and one that fights off um, in agents through themselves, or cell mediated. So our immune system has the ability to create these molecules called antibodies, which we kind of talk about freely, but that will circulate for extended period of time, whether it's days to weeks to months to years. And in this situation, we're talking about years. So what a antibody titer test is it tests our bodies, or in this case, our pets' bodies, for the amount of circulating antibody that is in current existence that's protecting them from a certain disease. And so, and it's funny because that we have to talk about this in veterinary medicine, because it's just commonplace in human medicine. Like, for example, me, I have to be rabies vaccinated, obviously, because I'm working with animals all the time. But before we get a rabies booster, we get a rabies titer test, every 5 to 8 years, depending on what situation you're in. And so it's just commonplace in human medicine. And we haven't really brought that over to veterinary medicine yet, but it should be commonplace in my opinion. But that's what a vaccine titer test is. It helps to prove whether through the humoral immunity around, or the antibody immunity around, that our body is protected adequately. And of course, there is a caveat to that, because there's a lot of people that will argue that the other side that I mentioned still remembers the distemper or the parvo virus, and that can kill it off, which I guess is possible, but we can't test for that yet. So the best route we have to prove immunity would be through testing antibodies.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned this earlier, but actual research has shown that your dog's initial vaccinations they got when they were a puppy or when they first came into your home with you could still be providing ample protection for the dog's entire lifespan.
Yep.
And so what could happen is, and the reason titering is important, based on everything we've talked about, is that, we could just be, again, I said this, but like we could just be giving vaccine after vaccine after vaccine, the same one over and over again every year for our annual shots when our dog already has protection. And it's widely known and understood and agreed upon in vet med and human medicine as well, as you mentioned, that vaccinations don't come without risk, of course. So there can be negative side effects. So that's why titering, for me at least, and for any pretty much integrative or veterinary, holistic veterinarian will agree that they're an awesome resource, and often more affordable in many situations, to, after you do your initial rounds of vaccinations, to every year or every other year titer test, which is, so what is it? We go to the vet, we get a blood draw. Can you tell me what that looks like?
Yeah, exactly. So it's extremely simple. It's basically that because if you're getting your annual exams every year with your dog, you're getting blood drawn in most situations. So it's just a blood draw that is submitted to a lab, and I think there's several options out there, but there is one that we consider gold standard, or two labs that are considered gold standard. So, but it's submit to a lab, and they would just test it, and it takes 2 to 4 weeks to come back. And it tells you right away, like, is this animal protected? It's extremely simple. And I think that it's talked about as if like, oh, this is an arduous option, but it's the other option. But no, it's super easy. It's exactly what we do with everything else. We take blood and we send it to the lab and we get an answer. It's very easy.
It is very easy. Now, I will say there is a part of it though where the results come back and there is, a little bit of experience needed to assess those results. But what's really cool is, well, interestingly, I am going through a tighter process, and I'll be making some other content to show everyone, with my Labrador Bentley. He's 13, and he was having a vet checkup. So, yeah, he's 13. Can you believe that?
Wow, cool.
I know, my old guy. And so I took him for a checkup, and I asked them for some blood serum, and I'm going to send it out to the lab.
Mhm.
And the results will come back. And Dr. Zach, you actually have a resource that people can actually do titer tests through your resource with their vet. And it's actually very affordable, especially like somebody in the chat just now said, you're looking at, for basic, just to get shots, plus exam fees, you're looking at 130 plus and more. Just to even get some basic vaccines. So the option you have is basically, and I'll let you talk about it, but basically you have an option to help people get titer tests, making it very accessible. They can do this with their vet during their regular exam. And you're one of the few that can actually do this.
Yeah, so super exciting. This month, I was through Naked Pet, through our telehealth company, and we were officially approved as a partner with one of those two gold standard labs in the country. And so what we've been able to do is we're, I think, probably the third, maybe the fourth, but there's a couple options, but we're one of the only vets in the world that actually helps to facilitate titer testing for pets. And what's different is that we're actually creating it almost like a concierge, start to finish session, or a service that, we're not, there's some out there, but like, there's no one that's going to do it like we're going to do. We're going to help, walk you and your pet through it from start to finish. And at the same time, like you had mentioned, the only hard part is kind of interpreting the results and understanding what to do next in terms of planning for either this year or 2 years from now or 4 years from now. What is this telling me and what do I say? And that's something that we're also going to do, is we're going to help with discussing that. And we'll also be sending copies of the results to, obviously, the pet parents, but also to their regular vet if we are, shared that information in terms of their email address. So, the goal from Naked Pet from the beginning has been to work in collaboration with conventional pet clinics, so that pet parents can have their regular vet that they need. You need a regular vet that's brick and mortar. But at the same time, if they're looking for additional things that can partner with or assist or enhance the services that are there, or regular vets are looking to offer things as well that can, enhance the services they can offer their clients, then that was the goal of Naked Pet, was to be this collaborator. And I think that the titer test through it is a really great way we can continue to advance that.
Yeah, when Dr. Zach mentioned this to me, I shrieked because I was so excited because and for those watching it, you if you're not kind of in this world, you may not realize like why this is such a big deal. But for pet parents like myself, that I am really trying to put my dog's health, really trying to prioritize my dog's health for longevity. And one of the things that is widely agreed upon is that over vaccinating can absolutely be harmful for a number of reasons. And so titer tests allows me to make sure my dogs are protected against these diseases. But most veterinarians, a lot of veterinarians in the conventional space, aren't quite up to speed on how to do this yet. It's very simple, as Dr. Zach said. And so now that it's become much more of a mainstream practice to titer, the other problem was that it wasn't accessible to pet parents. It was really expensive. And the biggest complaint I heard was that people just didn't understand the results because there would be exorbitant fees to try to get some help with understanding the results of it. So basically what Dr. Zach told me that he's done and he's now launched, which is crazy, is this whole process for you to be able to send in for titer tests and help you understand what the results are so you can make an informed and educated and best decision for your pet based on the results. So it's like everything you would need right then and there, working in collaboration with your vet. And I won't say nobody else, but very few people are doing this. And I've never seen anybody else do this with this concierge personal support. I think that's incredible, like, exclusive doing this, by the way.
Yeah, it's super exciting. I didn't think that was going to get, I didn't think it was, I was very surprised how excited they were to work with us. So I was like, okay, let's do it. It was just one call away, I guess. So, but it is.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll have it linked in the description. You guys get an exclusive discount, of course, for this community, for the Rachel Fusaro community, because you guys are that special. So this is something, again, you can do with your veterinarian. I literally, and I'll make a video, took Bentley to a vet. I'm not near my hometown where my holistic in-person vet is. So I had to go to a very conventional vet, just very conventional in his practices. He's a great vet, but he just doesn't quite understand the processes. And it was super easy. I took my dog in. I asked for a serum of 3 mils of blood serum, and they gave it to me. And then I'll just ship it off. And Dr. Zach is going to help me read the results, which actually would be a cool video. Maybe we could do and kind of talk about the results. So, anyways, that will be linked below. This is huge. Please share about this because I think it's, I know that this is a huge need and gap in the market for kind of pet parents 2.0. And Dr. Zach, I am seeing people ask questions about outside of the US. Are you able, like Canada or even Europe? Is that something that this can support at this time?
I'm not positive. I will.
Okay.
I can call the lab and I can ask them for sure. I have a personal connection there that she's willing to help me with any questions. So that's a good one. I will write it down and ask if we can.
Yeah. And I do also want to talk about in a moment what to do if you're giving your dog vaccines, but then you're seeing a reaction. This is something that's not talked about enough, but something you should know because your dog could get their vaccines, every year, every other year, however you do it, and have no issues. But then 6 years down the road, they could have a reaction. So it's something that even if you think it's not applicable, could be. But before we do that, I want to also mention a service that Dr. Zach offers that is not something that is very readily available. So it's really exciting, which are your telehealth services. I know you kind of mentioned that, but I just want to reiterate, if you watching this are looking for a personalized vet consult online, like kind of like what this live looks like, where you are like face to face with Dr. Zach and his team for something even not vaccine related. Maybe you have allergies, ear infections, hot spots, your dog's having some like GI issues, diarrhea, anxiety, stress. I mean, if your dog is having an issue or a problem, Dr. Zach offers online vet telehealth consults, which is insanely cool because probably the top 3 concerns I get from my community is that pet parents want to offer more integrative and holistic options, but they don't have an integrative or holistic vet near them. And so now it doesn't matter where they live, they have access to you.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And yeah, we created it. We, as in me and my assistant, but make it sound huge. But but
I know.
you know, essentially, if you go on there and you look on the website, it's each console is targeted to, like you just said, like the main complaints or the main worries that I've at least heard over the years, and that I hear other veterinarians say the pet parents have. You know, like for example, we have one on there where we focus on animal enrichment for animals that are inside for most of the day by themselves. Like, how can we maximize their fun when they're not there? Because animals get a lot of diseases from being bored and tired, and that can be neurologic, that can be mental, that can be becoming obese, etc. So, you know, we listened to kind of what pet parents were worried about the most and what veterinarians were hearing the most, and we created targeted therapies for it. And actually, the one that we have on there that has been actually pretty cool, I've had a couple of clients through it, is one called Holistic Total Puppy Kitten Wellness. So it basically helps, kind of like the vaccine titer, but in a grander scale, walk pet parents through when you get a new pet, like what to do from start to finish and what's the best way to raise them in a way that's going to maximize longevity, like you mentioned before, like you do with your pets. So and something we're going to do is we're going to actually, for the vaccination titers, offer anyone who does that holistic puppy kitten wellness telehealth, is that they'll get 33% off of the vaccine titer telehealth consults for the rest of that animal's life. So I think that would be really helpful and really useful, and something that will make a huge impact in that animal's life and that pet parent's life for the entire time that you guys are a family.
Yeah, I think that this is extremely powerful. This is something that would work for someone that your dog has been struggling, your pet has been struggling, because I won't give in too much, but your pet has been struggling with something. Again, it could be maybe you have a senior pet and you're trying to improve their quality of life, or you have a new puppy or kitten, or like I said, anything allergy related, gut issues, and you've been working through this and you're just not getting results. This is something that could be a supplemental resource, because Dr. Zach also works in emergency vet med. So he gets to kind of see the other side of things. And I think that gives him a really diverse background. I feel like I'm just like selling you, but I'm so honored that we get access to this, because, even 5-10 years ago, like this, you never would have been able to. Like, I had to
Yeah.
drive hours to find a veterinarian with the experience that you have, because you have both the conventional experience and training. So you understand all of that, and you're not so far extreme to where you're anti all conventional practices. You're
Yeah.
well-rounded, I would describe. But you also have all the experience, education, knowledge, and expertise on the more holistic side. So it's really just an incredible resource for those of us that are kind of, we'll call it pet parent 2.0 or next gen pet parent, that just want to
Yeah.
go
I
above
would
and
call it
beyond.
next gen pet parents. That's exactly what I'd say. Yeah.
Yeah. So that'll be linked down below. So definitely, to check that out. But so we've talked about core vaccinations, non-core vaccinations. Let's talk about what happens, or let's talk about what are some common side effects that we might see, and even some uncommon ones. And what do we do if and when we see them?
Yeah. So, for if your pet has never had vaccine before, or they've been fined, because actually most times we see the reactions when they've been fined for the first ones, and then it's like the second or the third that they'll have the reaction. So, so we'll go through kind of like the more mild symptoms you might see at home that you could maybe do something about at home, and then the more moderate to severe things that can happen as well. That all would also be something that obviously we need to address, but probably would be in the home setting. So, so the mild reactions we'll see are mostly skin related. So you might see some redness around the eyes, around the mouth, might become a little itchy. And even sometimes they'll get what's colloquially called hives, but the scientific word would be like urticaria, which is essentially when you get those bumpies on your skin that are hives reaction. So
Oh, Are you guys, is it frozen? Oh, did you freeze there, Zach? Dr. Zach?
Yep, I was frozen for about 30 seconds.
Okay, there we go. All right, start that
Jumping
again.
off where we were. So the short-haired breeds are the ones we see most commonly get kind of these reactions. So anywhere from your little bully breeds to dachshunds, sometimes we'll get them actually a lot. I'm friends with Adam Chrisman, who's another kind of veterinary influencer, and he has 4 dachshunds. He's getting a 5th, and he actually titer tests. He told me I just talked to him really recently, and he titer tests all his dachshunds because he knows that they're predisposed to sometimes having a higher rate of having reactions. So, it's more like this, so the short kind of like shedding breeds, the ones we see most. But if you do see those signs that I just said, so either a little bit of redness around their eyes, their face, maybe a little bit of swelling, and a little bit itchiness on the face, or you start to see those like hives reactions. This is where pharmaceuticals will become helpful. So Benadryl is a safe over-the-counter medicine, and that's what you would get as well as if you were in the emergency room. Just it would be in a different form. But one Benadryl at like 1 milligram per pound is what we would recommend if this was a person that was calling our clinic. So, and you can try that. It would be 1 milligram per pound. You would give it by mouth, and you can give it every 4 hours if you need to, for like maybe 2 to 3 total. However, if that's not working, or you see what I'm going to describe right now, which are your moderate to severe reaction signs, then it would be best to go to a clinic to get it addressed. Which some more moderate signs would be if you see some really severe, like swelling of the eyes where they can't even look out of their eyes anymore, or they have 2 or more episodes of vomiting, so you'll start to see GI signs potentially, or the most concerning, which is when it starts to affect their airway. So if they start to get airway swelling, they're kind of starting to breathe like they sound like they're breathing through a straw, or they're honking when they're breathing. Those are reasons to not waste any time and to try to get to either your regular vet clinic if it's normal business hours, or if it's getting to the end of the day, to an emergency clinic to get treated. So the treatment's pretty simple though. Again, it's Benadryl, but it's a higher dose, and it's an injection we'd give an intramuscular injection of it. And then depending on the vet you see, I usually start with the Benadryl, but if it's a really bad situation, then we'll also give a dose of steroid, which helps to right away suppress the immune system, which is good in that moment. We always talk about steroids being bad long-term, but in that moment, you need to suppress this super inflammatory response that our immune system's having. So that's why I'm integrative focused, because pharmaceuticals play a role in the very short term, in my opinion. That's why we created them. They're more potent and they do the job. They are not meant for long term in the highest majority of situations. But in that situation, it will save your pet's life. So that's why we do that. So and then in the future, we were kind of talking about this before. I was thinking about it actually. I was like, I'm not sure what you do. So if your animal does have a vaccine reaction, then what I would say is that we can kind of load them with antihistamine and anti-inflammatory natural options. So one thing we talked about, which we offer through the Naked Pet affiliate program, which is only online right now, actually, it's only through the social media platforms. We're going to get that on the website soon. But my favorite antioxidant in the world, because it's been proven again through research of every major antioxidant, is actually astaxanthin, which is a type of algae, and it's 6,000 times more potent than vitamin C, which is crazy to think about, but they actually have a scoring system that proves that. And so I probably would start them with both food as well as potential supplement related antioxidants to help reduce the chances of kind of an over oxidative state and a reactive state. And then one thing we could do is start some natural antihistamines. So the natural ones that we talk about are either quercetin with an enzyme, or stinging nettle, which are your 2 kind of natural antihistamines. So I would probably start supplementing those somewhere between a week to 2 weeks before, if we do have to get another vaccine in the future. But that'd be where I would do.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to even think about is, if we know that our dog's going to need to get a vaccine in the next few months or next year, really setting up their immune system for success, which Dr. Zach and I have talked about this numerous times on other lives. I'll be linked down below. But, thinking about the basics, what are we feeding our dog? Obviously, we prefer fresh food diets, minimally processed, like raw or gently cooked, that's complete and balanced. That's really important. So DIY home made can be great diets, but you need to be working with vet nutritionist or certified nutritionist that has experience in how to formulate these diets, or just buy one at the store that's complete and balanced.
Yeah.
Or if you're feeding a kibble, right? Like you can even, if you're feeding a bowl of kibble, Dr. Zach, can't I just take out, 10 to 15% of that kibble and replace it with pet safe, real fresh foods to see anti-inflammatory, immune boosting benefits?
Mhm. Yeah, 100%. I mean, I know that, and a lot of integrated vets talk about how we can maximize the bowl, even if, whether it's through, schedule or through financial or whatever reason that, it's not possible for us to for a pet parent to cut out kibble all the way, because it is tough. The majority of pet parents that I talk to, it's really tough. Like, because it is more expensive, it's substantially more expensive. So I'm hoping the price will start to normalize. But for the most part, it can be more expensive, or if you cook at home, it can be the same price, but it's more time consuming. So, so there's definitely factors to play, but you can enhance the bowl substantially through superfoods that you can add. So the three I start with usually are, four actually would be an egg, small white fish in water, so like sardine, anchovy, mushrooms that are not white button mushrooms, and then blueberries. Those are the four that I start with. Dark leafy greens you can add as well. That's the fifth one. That's great. But those four right there are going to cover so much in terms of omegas, in terms of natural protein sources, in terms of vitamins and minerals. Like eggs is one of the best multivitamins that exists, and then blueberries is the best antioxidant food. So those are the four I usually start with right there. And you can easily supplement 33%, so a third of the bowl, or maybe even more, with those four, and still get, still feed kibble for the majority, and be doing a great thing for your pet.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree, of course. And then a couple questions have come up, and I don't know, there's one I don't know if that I've heard of this before, but Ma'am Borghini asks, what about homeopathic nosodes instead of vaccines? Are you familiar with that?
I am. Actually, I had a conversation with two of your good friends, the Crazy Cat Ladies, about that.
Okay.
So what nosodes are, is they're considered natural immune sensitizers. And it's a homeopathic theory and practice. And homeopathy is a very specific alternate discipline in the holistic space. And I think that, again, like everything, some homeopathic processes and practices have a lot of merit, and others are subjective to the practitioner that is doing it. So in my opinion, I do not practice that.
Okay. I wasn't even familiar with it, and I research under and work with a lot of integrative and holistic vets, and I haven't heard that spoken about a bunch. Doesn't mean it's not valid. I'm interested to learn more into it. And somebody was asking,
alternate discipline. You have to get heavily trained in homeopathy too. It's a different discipline. If you find a practitioner and you feel comfortable working with them, then absolutely, I think that there's people that have decades of experience with it. And so I'm not saying it's a bad thing at all. I just know that I personally don't practice homeopathy.
Okay. And then both Jane and Rebecca were asking if your telehealth services, not the vaccine one, but the telehealth one, can be utilized outside of the US, like the virtual vet consults.
Yeah. The regular virtual ones, absolutely. Yeah, we actually, one of the first ones we had was someone that was in Canada. So yeah, that can be anywhere. And we only speak English, though. I can speak medical Spanish, though.
I bet you can.
I practice in Miami a lot, so I need to know like medical Spanish, but my Spanish is more Spanglish. But if you can speak English, then I would say when we grow, my plan is to have integrative vet nurses that can speak multiple languages, and that's definitely a priority because I have a lot of clients that exist in heavily Spanish-based areas, as well as I have a couple of clients that are Portuguese. So there's a need for other languages, but if you can speak English for now, then yes, we offer options all across the world. There's no limit to the telehealth in general.
That's awesome. And then Where was it? There was another good question. Katrina was it Katrina? Where did it go? Oh, yeah, it was Katrina says, and it might be well, yeah, Katrina asks and says, I'm new to this and not all vets taking titer testing. Then I would just ask for a blood sample. Basically, she's asking like one more time to kind of walk through uh, what that looks like. So, I can tell you from my experience, I literally did this.
Mhm.
Was it yes? Was this no? It was Saturday. I went to the vet,
Saturday.
and I took my dog in, Bentley, and is he behind me? No. Oh, there he is. I took Bentley in, passed out, and
Okay.
behind me, yeah, and yeah, can you see him? And
There he is.
took him to the clinic,
Yeah.
and he was getting his annual blood draw, which that we should actually mention that wellness checks in a moment before we go. But he was getting his annual blood draw, and I just asked, "Can you get me an extra vial of blood serum?" I asked for 3 mils,
Mhm.
and they spun it, and they. At first they're like, "What is this for?" And I said, "For titer testing that I'm going to mail out." And they're like, well, "Okay." Like it wasn't a big deal at all. Just they kind of aren't used to it, but it wasn't like this huge thing. And I can't say that every vet clinic will be like this, but they didn't charge me extra for that. Like I was already there for an appointment and I got my appointment
Right.
fee and everything, but I didn't get charged an extra fee to get the blood vial. So it took them 10 minutes to do it, in terms to spin it up. They brought me the blood vial, and then Dr. Zach informed me to put it in the fridge.
Mhm.
And then I will ship it out with the titer test concierge service that he offers, which will be linked below. There's steps for you of like where to ship it, the information, how to submit online, but then just ship it out to the lab directly. So what that does too is that saves kind of this middleman pricing for us too, as pet parents, because we're just like literally shipping it to the lab.
Mhm.
The lab will provide the results. Dr. Zach will then have an appointment with you like this, like virtually,
Mhm.
and then he'll tell you what the results read, and then from there, a decision will be made between you, Dr. Zach, and your conventional vet
Mhm.
on if your dog needs more vaccines or not.
Mhm.
Is that a good
Yeah.
explanation?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the only work that you have to do as a pet parent is you have to get that tube of serum from your vet. And serum, just explain, serum is the blood half of a sample. So you have cells and you have liquid. Serum is just the liquid half. So your regular, all you have to do is you have to get 2 to 3 mils for the sample, and then we would do a consult just like this. So we would talk about it first, and then once you got that sample, then we would email you the submission form, like you just mentioned, and the form to mail it. So there's no like shipping fees or anything. And then you would ship it. And then once the results come back, they'll come to the Naked Pet email, and then we will set up a consult with whenever's good for your schedule and talk about what the results were. And then, we'll send a copy obviously to you guys as well as to your vet if you share that email, or if you want to send it to your vet as well instead. And then we would talk about, what do we have to do? Like now we have this value, and does it, and it is a little weird because they do it in these like weird factors and whatever. I'm trying to think what it would be in, but I'm looking for a word here, but whatever is like, it's in like these micromoles per mil. So regardless, and it's within a range. So long story short, we'll talk about what it means for today, as well as in the years to come, what you have to do. And so, and that's pretty much what I feel like in the future we'll be doing as well in the clinic. But, as a lot of people have expressed, it's almost not heard of still, unfortunately.
Yeah, it really is unheard of. So this is incredible. And Katrina says that, hopefully they're okay with it. If they don't titer, her vet's against raw feeding. So she's worried. And, you could even call ahead to a vet and ask like, hey, if I come in with my dog for an appointment, would you mind giving me a vial that I'm going to send out? They should be okay with it. I don't think that it'll be,
Well,
they don't have to do anything other than draw the blood.
they can't force you to do anything. they literally can't. So if they want to charge you for the vial of blood, then that's fine, I guess. I personally think that's crazy. But if you're going in for, like you did, you went in for a wellness, like an annual wellness, right? And so they were already doing things. They were drawing his blood probably to get blood work for his annual, and they were doing an exam already. So they were already doing things. So to just be like, I need 1 vial of serum in order to submit, I'm going to submit my own, then there should be no pushback when it comes to that. And remember, they don't have to do anything. So to answer that question specifically, like even if a vet is against, vaccine titers, they're not doing anything. and they can't force you to get a vaccine unless you live in a jurisdiction which they're mandating rabies vaccination. So that's the last thing we actually didn't mention, is that if you're not in an area that is like specifically through the law, because a lot of people talk about it, but if you're not through the law that it says you must have a rabies vaccine annually or et cetera, then if your pet has any type of immune-mediated disease that could ever be connected to that, so that includes allergies, that includes any blood disorders, I guess the more severe ones. If he's getting chronic ear infections, a lot of these are immune mediated related. What we also offer as the last thing is we have a document that actually Gene Dodd uses as well. That's a rabies exemption letter for those rabies situations, that if in those situations your vet is forcing you, even with this rabies titer, and the law is not like a mandated written in set stone law, we have a document that we can do for you that will help to validate your conversation with your vet that I don't want to continue doing rabies vaccines unless it's mandated, it's necessary through this titer test that proves we're not protected. So that's the last thing we'll do.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that. And also, oh gosh, I had something on top of my head. Another thing that people will often ask or mention is that they only get vaccines every year because maybe they're dog boarding or training or daycare requires it. And, that's what I would say is, first off, I don't love dog parks, so maybe avoid that.
Me too.
The only dog park I like are empty ones, because I do have a couple empty ones near me that I go to.
Yeah.
And doggy daycares make me nervous, just because a lot can happen. That's just my personal preference. It takes one really bad experience that can really dramatically change your dog behaviorally.
Dog parks are a breeding ground for every disease possible, kind of like we mentioned before. Or your puppy can get naturally immunized, but every soil stable disece exists in dog parks. So, to each their own.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
no, exactly. And, but what I would say to that is just, it's up to you and your decision. I will say that it's becoming, things are not going to change until us as pet parents are helping to educate and inform. So what I have done in the past, we actually we were living in an apartment 2.5 years ago that were hardcore. You have to have vaccines. You have to have vaccines. And so I printed out the titer test. And when you get it, in a sense, it kind of it shows the distemper, the parvo on there, and it'll show levels and immune protection. So I just showed that to them. I was like, does this work? And then I don't know if they knew exactly what they were looking at, but they accepted it, lived there, no problems. So I don't know. And then I just signed up Marlo. For those not following, she's my recent adoption. I signed her up for a dog training class that I start in June. Very excited. And I know, I'm very excited. And they accept titers. And then I also signed up for, I haven't told you this, Dr. Zach, but a doggy camp. It's a summer camp where you go with your dog for a whole week, and 8 hours a day. It's like the first hour is like agility, then rally, then lunch break. And then it's like canoeing with your dog and hiking. And it's just a camp with your dog. Anyways, they accept titers as well. So I think it's becoming a lot more common practice.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I know.
I remember when I was a kid, I was going to camp. My parents didn't even come to my camp, let alone you're going to your dog's camp.
Oh yeah, I cannot.
That's amazing. That's so cool. I think gosh, this is the world I wish we lived in.
I know. It's
crazy. Going to camp with their dogs.
I know. It's insane. It's like, and then, they have seminars on like nutrition, and all the proceeds go to dog cancer research, goes to the Dog Cancer Research Foundation.
Wow,
I know, it's crazy.
So cool. But basically what you're doing is you're expressing how you have to be your dog's advocate or your pet's advocate, because the titers is for cats too. So just so everyone's aware, we have titer testing for cats and for dogs. So I know we talk about dogs a lot on here, but cats and dogs, we have titer testing for their core vaccines. But basically what you're describing is just what it takes to be your pet's advocate, his or her health advocate. And it takes some confidence, for sure. You gotta be willing to stand up for them. And it'll probably become easier over time. But, you have people like Rachel and you have people like me that are willing to stand beside you if you're willing to do it.
Yeah. This one might be a hard one to answer. Just a couple more questions, and I know we're at time. But
Oh,
Mama Bear asks, "Oh, never mind." Well, I guess somebody was saying that their vet recommended a vaccination, even though they had a good titer. Any thoughts of maybe why that was? It's kind of hard without the context, I guess.
I think the point of titers is to prove that we
Yeah.
don't need it, because again, I could see I could see a veterinarian if the titer was, but it was on the equivocal range. So that would be a potential reason where I may recommend an animal get vaccinated, even if it technically was above the not protected range. Because unless you want to pay for another vaccine titer in 3 to 6 months, which you could, I'm sure you definitely could, but there's a good chance that animal is not going to be protected within a short period of time if it's already
Yeah.
equivocal. So that could be one reason that they could have said that, but I'm not sure if I could 100% say.
Yeah. And Barbara asks, "Are you from Staten Island?" I think your accent.
Long Island, no
Uh,
Staten Island. Goodness. Oh,
I
I
know.
want to
I
be
was like, that might be offensive.
I'm from Long Island. Long Island's where it's at. There's four different, this is off the top, but there's four different states within New York. You have Long Island, you have New York City, you have Staten Island, and you have upstate. So anything upstate that's a different continent. And
It
then
is.
you have Manhattan area, and you have Bronx, Manhattan. I guess you could even include Brooklyn in there, and then you have Staten Island, and then you have Long Island. So there's four different states within New York, and that's a commonplace theory.
That's funny. And actually, this is really cool. Katrina, who we were just answering her questions while on the live, she called her vet and they're willing to help with the rabies. So that's really exciting, Christina
Oh man,
or
that's awesome.
Katrina. Yeah, that's so
Awesome.
cool.
Awesome.
And so I think to summarize too, like with the vaccines, I think we said this, but or with the titers, is just to make it as part of like your annual routine. I think we talked about that
Mhm.
before this call, Dr. Zach, is like generally speaking, what tell me one more time, oh, we didn't do it on camera, what your recommendations are for kind of wellness visits. And then the
Mhm.
purpose of bringing this up is during your wellness visit, you can ask for the blood vial draw.
Mhm.
That way, when your dog is already getting their blood samples, they can just do it in one. So it's not an extra visit.
Yeah. So, I think it would be good maybe for us to do something in the future, like a total preventative wellness package. I think because
Yes.
that's important. We always, we talk about disease and then there's conventional prevention, but I feel like there should be like there should be a program
Hmm.
for integrative holistic prevention that we could do. That's, because there's a lot of content online, but it's like, can we package this into something? So maybe that's something we do in the future. But
Yeah,
ultimately,
comment below. That's a good idea. Comment below, everyone, if that would be helpful, like an all-in-one, I don't know, a resource that would like talk about, okay, here's all like preventative health. Um, Barbara, that's such a wonderful concept. And by the way, she said she agrees with your New York theory. Anyways, but you recommend, what was it, up to 4 years old, at least like a general wellness visit every other year and so on?
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. So I guess this is for a medium, I would say for medium-sized dog, because large to giant breed dogs, they age a little bit quicker, and
Mm,
small breed dogs, I guess. So this for a small and medium-sized dog, I would say from age 0 to 4, maybe 0 to 5 every other year. So you do your puppies, then you do your annual 1 year of age, then maybe like 3 to 5. This is if your animal's been otherwise healthy. Obviously, if it has conditions, you usually check one. Once they hit about 4 or 5, though, they're kind of middle aged. That's definitely when I would say at least a minimum annual. So 4 to 5 years of age, then every year until they're about 7, and then once they're 7 or 8, depending on the size of the dog, but 7 or 8 is actually when you hit senior years. So when they're senior years, they should be seen. I recommend every 6 months. For a variety of reasons. For example, dental health for medium to small breed dogs is something we really worry about. Not so much with larger breed dogs, but organ function, bones and joints, neurologic things. Heart. That's something we can't check at home. So to be monitoring those things, especially once you hit about year 7 or 8, I think is best if you can do it every 6 to 9 months. But yeah, because even though pet parents know their pets best, sometimes it's good to have double eyes on them and helping them, especially when they're getting to the older age. And again, I tell people all the time, age is definitely not a disease in itself, but it does give you more time and predispose you to getting more diseases. So that's why we like to promote longevity from the beginning, which is why I created that holistic puppy and kitten wellness package consult that we do, because I think that that's the best way to maximize longevity. But at the same time, having eyes on them consistently with your vet is also super important.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. On that note, I think that'll wrap it up for today. I think I'm getting a lot of positive comments across all the platforms. I think I just got 10 in the past minute saying, yes, we want that kind of preventative guide resource. So we'll talk about that offline, see if that's something we can put together for you guys. Because I do agree that really everything we're talking about, I mean, this isn't breaking news. This is stuff that's been practiced for dozens of years, widely agreed upon practices. It is hard for the everyday really busy pet parent to go and figure out how to connect the dots, I think.
Right.
So
for sure. 100%.
Yeah. So thank you guys so much for watching. Dr. Zach, I appreciate you being here. And friendly reminder that your for Dr. Zach's titer concierge service is now live. You are actually, especially those on live with us, are getting absolute first access. Actually, I'm going to be hopefully your first customer, but you guys get second access. Yeah, because I need to get a titer done for Bentley. But it'll be linked in the description below. There is a code, and that is exclusive for the Rachel Fusaro community. So you can save a little bit on that. And then he also has just general vet telehealth services. Well, they're not general, but like if you have a specific condition or concern about your dog, he offers them there. And you're really responsive. So like if you don't see something you want help with on his online telehealth services, I'm sure they could email you and say, hey, is this something you would support? Which, program do you recommend? I'm sure that you would respond and help out.
Yeah. And we're looking to expand them as well. I mean, same with the products, like the products and the telehealth we do. Like that was just trying to cover the bases, right, of the most common complaints we get and the most common concerns we get from pet parents. So, but we are definitely going to expand it. I'm working with, a couple other people as well that have had some great ideas. And I think that over time, it's definitely going to grow much bigger. This was, kind of like we're still in the, I think it's funny because we talk about it like it's, been forever, but it's only been launched for 3.5 months now. And so we've already had a huge supporting, like I've had a couple of people even today that were emailing me and just being like, we're so happy, we love it, et cetera. So it's been extremely fulfilling for me and for my team to see that come in. And this is literally just the beginning. So we love feedback and we love suggestions, and we are extremely interested in listening to this Excelsior pet parent community to see what else we can offer that would make them feel like we're in it with them.
I love that. Before we hop off, just a quick shout out. Thank you, Barbara, MX Chick, David, Katrina, Sherry, Ed, Kathleen, Nadia, Jane, Roxy, Mama Bear, John. Thank you guys all so much. And Susie, Natalie, Lisa, for just being really interactive here. Just want to give you guys a little shout out. So with that, make sure you share this video. This could literally save and help lives for our pets. And make sure you subscribe. We will be back with an Ask a Vet series soon. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss that. And hope you guys have a beautiful day.